So in previous lesson, we installed ESXi 01. In your lab, you should install ESXi 02 again, and we should have two ESXi's here. The first one is going to be this IP address 192.168.10.1, and the second is going to be 10.2. So let's configure them and assign the IP address for ESXi's. So first of all, as you can see, the ESXi, it's request the IP address from DHCP server and it's get the IP address. So let's say CMD and we'll ping this IP address. Ping 192.168.10.226. As you can see, we can ping this IP address. So you may ask how we can ping this ESXi that inside our VMware workstation. This is because of the VMnet 0. This one. These are actually virtual network that you can use to actually build your entire lab. But as it shows here in our diagram, I chose VMnet 0 because basically VMnet 0 is a bridge with our interface in our laptop or PC. That means my PC even have this IP address, which as you can see, my default gateway is my modem and it's give me the IP address to my PC that I can route the internet. That's great. So to clarify it for you, we'll go to edit and preferences here. Edit virtual network editor. And here we'll say change setting. As you can see, VMnet 0, it uses auto bridging with external connection, which is my network adapter of my PC, this one. And here we can change the setting, which is by default, or you can specify which one, which is going to be this one. As you can see, let me show you, my PC interface is this part number. And here, as you can see, they are the same. So it doesn't matter, you'll choose your actually physical connection or you set it on automatic. So we'll leave it to automatic, which is default. So this is how we can use VMnet 0 even for my ESXi to bridge this VMnet, which is VMnet 0 to my PC. That means we can easily actually transfer the data from our local computer to the virtual machine inside our VMware workstation. So keep in mind that again, VMnet 0 is bridged with your physical interface of your laptop or PC, which is a great option that you can connect easily. Again, I should mention that in VirtualBox, actually, you don't have this option. You should create it manually. That means you should have knowledge to create virtual networking. This is the big differences between VMware Workstation and VirtualBox. Actually, VirtualBox, it needs a little knowledge more than VMware Workstation, but VMware Workstation, it's much easier than VirtualBox. So that's great. So let me show you the configuration of ESXi. As you can see, the processor, I only gave 8 GB for memory to this ESXi. So as it shows here, it tells you you should press F2 to customize system. So we'll say F2 and we'll type the password that we actually assign in the installation. So we'll go to the configure management here, first one. Actually here we can change the password. We should type the old password and we'll type the new password again. So we don't want to change the password. We'll say configure management and here network adapter. We have only one network adapter, but in your production environment, you will see that here you will see your physical network adapter here. For management, you can actually assign two physical interface. That would be great for redundancy. So Here you can assign the VLAN, you can type your VLAN ID. That means you can actually pass the traffic between your VLAN and the network that ESXi connected to. We'll say escape and IPv4 configuration. Here we'll use set static IPv4 address. This is going to be dynamic IPv4 and we can disable IPv4. So I'm going to use the first address, and the gateway actually will leave it to default just to test the connectivity. You can use whatever default gateway that you want, but I'm going to leave it default because this is my modem. That means I can ping internet addresses by actually having default gateway. So we'll say OK, and here you can disable IPv6 or you can leave it default. We'll say escape, and here is the DNS configuration. So we'll hold Ctrl Alt actually to have my cursor, and here the DNS is going to be Active Directory 10.5. That's great. So here I'm going to use the following DNS server. So for choosing the options here, you should press space here. So here I'm going to say 5. We don't have the second DNS, and here we'll say ESXi 01. That's great. So here it tells you should press OK to apply the configuration. And again, custom DNS suffix here will say lab.local. So we'll use this domain name. Later on, we're going to actually deploy our Active Directory in the lab environment. So we'll say OK. And now the configuration is actually completed successfully. We'll say escape here. And here it tells you for apply the changes, you must use Y for yes or N for no. So we'll say Y. That's great. So now we should go to test management network here to test the connectivity. Actually, we don't have our Active Directory power on yet. So let's say something like, for example, Google DNS and ping my gateway and something like my PC. Let me actually see my PC IP address. It's going to be 221. That's great. 192.168.10.221, and we'll say OK to test the connectivity between the addresses that we'll give to ESXi. So as you can see, the first IP addresses is resolvable, but the last one, ESXi 01, is not resolvable. That's okay. Later on, when we actually add the DNS server, we can actually access the ESXi by hostname. So we'll say OK. So in today's lesson, we learned how to configure management network for ESXi. You should actually, again, configure your second ESXi, like our first ESXi, and this time you should use ESXi 02 for host name, and the second IP address is going to be 2 for ESXi 2. So next lesson, I am going to talk about the rest of configuration here in ESXi.